if you want to do either one thing very well, or, as is the case for most women and a lot of men, do more than one thing and do it well, you really have to learn ways to manage not even just your time, but your energy and your attention in ways that let you accomplish the things that you really actually care about.
You're listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with your host, Michael Palmer. Listen each week as inspiring guests share their secrets of success to help you increase your confidence, work smarter, and build a business you love. This episode of The Successful Bookkeeper is brought to you by PureBookkeeping.com, the proven system to grow your bookkeeping business.
Welcome back to The Successful Bookkeeper. I'm your host, Michael Palmer, and I'm really excited about this week's episode because it was really the very first episode we recorded. We were thinking about putting out a podcast, and one of the things we do in our community every month is we have a mastermind where all of our members come on a call and we find out how they're doing and we address the challenges that they're facing in growing their businesses. And what had been continuing to come up for about the last year was this conversation of trying to get it all done and being overwhelmed. So we invited an expert to come and share with our members what they can do and how they can maybe relate differently to it, and some of the experiences that this expert had figured out throughout their career. And it was extremely valuable. We got a lot of feedback from our members saying, wow, that was great. We loved it. And so we decided, let's make it an episode right away for our podcast now. So here it is, and we really hope you enjoy it. Today, we have on the line a woman who hosts a great weekly podcast called The Productive Women. And you can find that at theproductivewomen.com. And for sure, we'll be emailing and putting all of that information up on our site. But really, the purpose of that podcast and how we found out about our guest is really her purpose is to help women find the tools and encouragement they need to manage their time, their life, their stress, so that we can all accomplish the things that we really care about the most and make a life that really matters. Her name is Laura McClellan, and we're going to thank her in just a little bit for joining us. And we're really going to tackle this concept of productivity today. So I'd like to hear from a few people around their struggles that they've had with time management and give Laura a little bit of context as to what you're all dealing with in your lives and in your businesses as bookkeepers. So who would like to share first? And I'm going to hot seat you eventually, so if you're, we're going to hear from everyone. So, because we don't have that big of a group, so the people that jump up first, it'll be much easier. Excellent, Tammy. Hello, Tammy. How are you?
Hello, I'm great. How are you?
I am fantastic. I am so much more fantastic seeing you on the call. It's so great to welcome you back to the community.
Yeah, let me tell you, it's challenging to be able to sit at my desk once a month for an hour to do this call. But here I am today.
Yes, well, we've got an announcement about that coming up. So thank you so much. So tell us your challenges around productivity.
You know what? My biggest challenge is this darn email, because I have tried to turn it off and to only look at it a few times a day, if at all. But it's extremely challenging just because that's the way that my clients ask me to do things and send stuff for me to do. And it's really hard to turn it off. And then when you get involved in working on one client's file and, you're trying to get into the work and there's 15 emails that pop up, it's very challenging, let me tell you.
Absolutely. I think we can all appreciate that. So thank you very much. That's one. So this whole business of dealing with emails and pop-ups and calls coming in is certainly, I'm sure, going to be food for a conversation.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. So let's go to Stacy. Hi, Stacy.
Hi there.
Welcome.
Thank you. One of my challenges is I'm moving from administration to bookkeeping, and it's the hardest thing is finding the time to take time for myself to train on the pure bookkeeping system, et cetera, and peel back the administration part of the job that I do. It's really hard to just say, I quit, and then I'm going to put all my energy into this, because then it'll be difficult because I have too much of a gap, or if there's no wages type of thing. So that's my balance. I'm just trying to shuffle. There's just too much to do and trying to find the time to get it all in.
Okay, excellent. Another massive one. So thank you for that. Who else would like to share? This is your challenges around productivity, dealing with things. I mean, we've captured the two big ones, email, managing priorities. We've got Joyelle. Let's hear from Joyelle.
Well, I'm going to say this pretty much the same thing as for your name, the first lady, the email problem. You get emails that are constantly coming in, and I try to do maybe once a day, twice a day, or whatever. It just doesn't work for me. Again, prioritizing all my big projects versus the monthly ones. Like I've got weekly clients that I go every week, and so on and so forth. And so trying to juggle all that and getting everything done without distractions.
Okay.
Phone calls and then there's always life that just kind of gets thrown in. So
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So
okay, great. Excellent. So that's some more content there. So thank you, Joyelle. We've got Jennifer Pottinger. Hello, Jennifer.
Hi, Michael. Good to hear you.
Great to hear from you as well.
Thank you. So my challenge around productivity is really pacing myself. And by pacing myself, I mean, I heard about a couple of years ago that, rest and relaxation is a key part of a high performance package. And was also made aware of, you go straight for 90 minutes, your brain starts to kind of play tricks on you. You might want to go for, maximum 2 hours and not start to undo the good work that you've done, right? So the whole message there was 90 minutes for efficient work. Stop, take a break, get off the grid. It's critical that you take a break, refresh, and come back to it. That for me has been the hardest thing because I'm so used to going straight, even through alarms that I'll set for myself. It's 90 minutes. But just a few minutes more and I'll be finished. And I look back and it's 5 hours or 6 hours and I haven't eaten or any of that sort of thing. Right. And so that's something I still struggle with. I think I'm getting better just by degrees. But it's that whole thing of pacing, rest, relaxation, get back in. You get back in with a clear, great mindset, energy, and go for it.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, and certainly I think that's going to be a question that others will have is how to stick to these things once they've been set up. So thank you, Jennifer. Okay, and we're going to go to Tammy Christensen. Hello, Tammy.
Hi, everyone. There's
Hello.
Two Tammys.
There is. So I had to double check that, make sure it was going. But no, this is Tammy. And Tammy, you're brand new to the community. So a big heartfelt welcome from all of us and welcome to your first mastermind. And what challenges are you facing?
So a challenge that was new to me in November when I decided to hire an employee so I could stop turning away work. Is answering her questions on top of the client calls and emails and trying to, focus into the harder tasks that someone newer into the role can't take on. So I've found that I've actually, at night when there's nobody here and nothing can interrupt me is when I'm finding my time to do the bigger, really dig into it kind of tasks. And that irks me because I want to do everything during the day.
Yeah, so keeping the work in the day and leaving your nighttime for doing the rest of your life. Okay, great. Well, I think those are some really great challenges that we can have Laura tackle. So Laura, can you hear us all and you're on okay?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, you're there. Welcome. So welcome, Laura, and you got a chance to hear a little bit about what some of our licensees and members of our community of bookkeepers are facing. And so, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey up to this point of being the productive woman.
Well, sure. And I have to preface it, though, by saying when folks introduced me as the productive woman, I always like to say I am not actually the productive woman. I host a podcast called The Productive Woman. I am just a busy woman like, the ones we've heard from already, always trying to learn new ways to make a meaningful life. So I'm really honored to be here. As far as who I am, I'm a lawyer by day, a real estate lawyer at at the Dallas office of a very large international law firm. I have been doing that for 18, 19 years. I've been married for a long time to the same guy. We married very young. We have 5 grown kids and 7 grandchildren, and so that keeps me pretty busy and pretty happy. And then in my off hours, I host The Productive Woman, and I actually also facilitate paid masterminds for women who are wanting to be more productive and encourage each other in that. So that's kind of the short version of who I am.
I think it gives everyone a great sense that you're going to have some great input because your life sounds very busy and with 5 children and a massive career. It's I think it really positions you as someone who can talk a lot about having a lot of priorities pulling you in multiple directions. So let's get into it. And the pleasure and honor is ours. So thank you on behalf of the community. Thank you for giving us this time to come and work with us. So we're gonna get a little deeper into that and maybe talk a little bit about how you got into having this podcast and having this conversation going on around the productivity and for women specifically. And we do have some men on the call today, but bookkeeping traditionally, the stats won't fail you. It's kind of an 80-20 and more likely like a 90-10. And our community is really heavily made up of women. So this really is your audience. So tell us a little bit about how you got involved in that. And then we'll get into some of your tips and how you can help us. And then we'll open it up for questions from our members.
Well, sure. I mean, as far as how I got into talking about productivity, I have to confess I've been a little bit of a productivity nerd since I was very young. As early as middle school and high school, I was interested in time management and organization and would read all the books. And, I love checklists and learning new ways to be more efficient and that sort of thing. And so it's just been a natural interest of mine. As I got older, and as I said, I married young, and then we married at 18 and had our first child when we were 20, and then as having more children, and then going to law school and doing different things, becoming productive and getting a handle on the obligations and commitments that I had created for myself became really a survival mechanism. If you want to do either one thing very well, or, as is the case for most women and a lot of men, do more than one thing and do it well, you really have to learn ways to manage not even just your time, but your energy and your attention in ways that let you accomplish the things that you really actually care about. And so it's just something I've always been interested in, and it's helped me succeed in my career and so on. And so a couple of years ago, as I was kind of looking for something to do outside the law practice, I listened to a lot of podcasts and thought that was something I would like to do. And the obvious topic for me was to talk about productivity. And for me, the obvious audience is other busy women like me. And so I launched the podcast a couple of years ago, and I thought at the time, well, my mother will probably listen because she likes me, but who knows if anybody else will. And I've been really honored that I've had the audience has grown both in size and in scope, and I get to interact on a regular basis with listeners from all over the world who share their lives with me and let me be a part of theirs.
Beautiful. Well, you know what? This is your audience, and this is an audience of bookkeepers, but really they're in the business of bookkeeping, and they are growing their businesses, which we honor and salute as making our continent, if you will, because you're from the United States and we're here in Canada. But small businesses is the lifeblood of both of those countries. And so, it's honorable here today to help our small business owners be more successful and get more things done and have a lot more fun doing it.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So we talked about a few things. There was that email, there's multiple priorities, there's distractions. Where do you want to start?
Oh, there's I want to start by saying to each one of these women that shared their challenges, Tammy and Stacy and Joelle and Jennifer and the other Tammy, the things that you find challenging, the things that you're struggling with, you are not alone. I get emails just about every day from listeners all over the world talking about their struggles with these very things. And I deal with them myself on a daily basis. I mean, it depends on what direction you want to go, Michael, in terms of big picture or down in the nitty-gritty. I mean, you could do a whole meeting talking about managing email. It's both the gift and the bane of our existence as business people, because it's how we can connect with our colleagues and with our clients, but it can take over our life and take over a lot of our time and a lot of our attention and a lot of our energy.
Yeah, I think I think email is probably a good place to start, and you're absolutely right. And it kind of falls into the distraction angle as well, because it is very distracting, or can be. But, what would be the recommendation if we started to focus on, how do we start to deal with this email? I mean, I struggle with it all the time, and I've used different strategies myself throughout my life to manage it. But you know what? It's like waiting it's like opening up a little present every time I open my email. What's going to be in there? And so I find myself, when I'm procrastinating, that it's easy to go click through my email and see what's in there. And then when I find stuff that I have to do, I'm like, oh, that's no fun. I don't want to do that.
Well, and you're absolutely right. Email and social media is the same thing. There is the science behind it, that little hit of dopamine that your brain gets when you see, ooh, I've got an alert. Somebody wants to talk to me. Somebody has something to say to me, and I'm needed. I'm connected. There's a connection there, and so it's a great tool for procrastination. But the other issue with email is it is the source of other people's priorities for your time. So it's really important to get a handle on it one way or the other to make sure that other people aren't driving your day for you. In any area of productivity or time management, those sorts of things, the first step has to be setting your priorities for yourself. And that means taking a step back and thinking intentionally about what kind of life do you want to live? What kind of person do you want to be? What kind of bookkeeper do you want to be? How do you want your business to be run? And getting those questions answered in your own mind and those priorities set for your own time and your own energy and your own attention before you ever open up your email. I could absolutely relate to what a couple of the ladies said about how, all the experts, and I'm using air quotes here, say, keep your email closed, only open it twice a day, like at 10 in the morning and at 3 in the afternoon, and then don't look at it any other time. And that doesn't work for everybody. I did a podcast episode about the fact that there are these productivity rules that don't work for everyone. I'm a lawyer. My clients communicate their needs to me through email. And when I have a closing going on, I have to be watching it almost constantly while trying to get work done. And it's a big challenge. So, I guess my first tip is, you can listen to what productivity experts say, but you need to do what works for you. And that's true of anything I say or any book you read or anything else. You can learn and take in the information and then figure out, use that, adapt it to something that works for you and for the way you want to live your life. I would say, if it's possible, I don't know a lot about bookkeepers' schedules, and I'm guessing there are probably high demand times maybe at the end of the month. I'm just guessing here.
Yeah, well, is there someone on that would like to sort of share? I mean, I can give you my take. I mean, I work with hundreds and hundreds of bookkeepers, so I get a sense of it, but better to ask the people, they're the experts of their lives on today. So who would like to share that's on the call today? How does their month and weeks look like from a day-to-day basis? Okay, Tammy.
Hi. Okay, so for my schedule, I'd say the first week of each month is a rather easy period of time. The next 3 to 4 weeks for that month are crazy because you've got month ends to do, you've got payrolls to do, government remittances to do, GST. It all happens from about the 10th of the month to the last day of the month.
Okay, so so it's very time-based, have to get things done, and there's high demand for, there's consequences if these things don't get done.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah,
okay, great.
And so that's kind of what I would have expected, knowing that you, I would guess, typically work for businesses and are handling the bookkeeping for them. And so since you know that about your schedule, and the same is going to be true for everybody who's listening, whose schedules may be some version of that, it would be helpful probably to look at your month as a whole and recognize, okay, I've got this 1 week out of the month that is going to be relatively quiet. That's my time to focus on big picture projects, new initiatives, training employees, schedule the time for that when you can. And maybe during those times of the month, you can check your email less often. So that you can have that focused time to work on whatever projects need that focused attention. Whereas when you're under a deadline, there are a couple of ways of dealing with it. If you have the ability to have an assistant who can monitor emails and only let through the things that are urgent, and truly need your attention, that would be one way to do it. The other would be to, somebody mentioned, I think it was Tammy, who said one of the things that's frustrating is when she goes into email because she's working closely with a particular client on a project on a deadline. While she's in email responding to them, a bunch of others pop up. One of the things that most email clients these days can do is you can designate certain people as VIPs, or they have different titles for it. And their emails get through, and everybody else's kind of get shuttled into off to the side, or until you have time to look at them. And that might be one way to do it, to set up some rules that during certain periods of time, only certain kinds of emails get through to your inbox, or only certain types of emails send alerts to you, while the others get put into a a later. One of those tools is something called SaneBox.
Very familiar with it. I use it myself. Yes.
Yes, there you go. And so that you could adapt that to this kind of use, temporarily kind of shuttling everything except the critical stuff out of your inbox into a Sane Later box. And that's an example of something that might be worth trying.
I think it's great, and the whole setting rules of just having work come into your email and your clients versus, because we all know that in our email, even if it's a personal or a work email, I mean they start to intermingle for whatever reason. So you'll get emails, marketing emails, emails from friends, whatever it is that can clutter up your workday, and it's just another distraction. So for me, it's been helpful to have one is just all the other stuff, and then it's like the really important stuff coming in. So I love that you brought that up, and that's a great strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I use different kinds of email tools depending on where I am and what I'm working on. But even though I have to be pretty available to my clients, I also have to be able to get their work done. And like you, I think all of you have, my work is the kind that often I need to have quiet, undisturbed time to really focus and pay attention to it. I mean, when you're doing somebody's books, it matters that you not get distracted when you're doing what you do. And so I have all the alerts turned off on my email, both on my mobile devices and my computer email clients. So I don't get dinged. I don't have anything flashing on my screen. It's in my inbox, and when I really need to focus, I may have it open, but I minimize that window so I can't see what's there if I look up. And like I said, if I've got an active closing on that day, I'm going to have my email inbox open, and I'm going to be watching it because, I'm going to be getting emails from somebody saying, hey, can we fund this money or whatever? And I need to be able to respond quickly. But part of it's really being clear and honest with yourself about what is worthy of your immediate attention so much that it's worth interrupting the important work you're doing to have it notify you when it comes in, and what isn't. How much of it is just we're going for that dopamine hit.
That's right. That's right. So, I think there's some good stuff around the email, but you started to talk about your priorities, which I liked. And one of the things that we talk about inside of our organization and with our members, the whole concept of working on your business. And Michael Gerber talks about it in eMyth, and our co-founders, Debbie Roberts and Peter Cook co-wrote eMyth Bookkeeper. And one of the pieces about working on your business is that you have to take time and make it a priority to change. If you have your business and it looks a certain way today, you have to take time. We recommend 3 to 4 hours a week to actually do things on the business that are going to have a different outcome, make you more productive, have, potentially hire staff, do marketing, whatever it is. Doing the work as a technician, as a bookkeeper, pretty much for everyone on the call here would say, yeah, that's what happens is they get full up working in the business. So what can we start to think about in terms of carving out that time in their schedules and holding themselves to actually doing that work, which is above and beyond what their business is demanding of them and what their personal lives are demanding on them?
Yeah, that's such a great question because it's important for all of us. I mean, part of obviously, I can completely relate to what you guys, the situation you're in, because I'm in a similar one in my law practice. Big part of my job is doing the client's work, getting documents drafted, getting deals closed, that sort of thing. But you can get so busy working in the business that you're never doing the work on the business to build it and grow. And so some of it has, again, to do with taking that step back and taking some time. And I would encourage anybody on the call who hasn't done this yet to look at your calendar and schedule some time in the near future, a couple hours on an afternoon, or, obviously not in the last week of the month, but find the time, make the time on an afternoon, on a Saturday morning down at the coffee shop or wherever, to do some intentional, purposeful thinking about your business, but in the bigger context of your life. And what do you want your business to be? Where does it fit into your life? When I talk about productivity or being a productive person or having a productive life, I'm not talking about checking the most stuff off your to-do list. When I talk about being productive, I define a productive person as a person who is able to order her life in such a way as to maximize her positive impact on the world around her. And that requires intention and purpose and thought about what kind of person you want to be, about what kind of life you want to live. You can get very, very busy and not be productive. Productivity requires having a destination in mind, having a target in mind, having a picture in your mind of what you want your business and your life to look like. And that requires setting aside some time to really think about those questions, journal about it, write it out, have a plan in mind of, all right, here's where I want to be 5 years from now, say. This is what I want my business to look like. This is what I want my home life to look like. Have that picture very clear in your mind, what's important to you and how that should be reflected in how you spend your time, your energy, your attention, and your money. And then you work backwards from that. What are the steps I need to take to get from here to there? If you don't have a plan for your life, other people will plan it for you. They will impose their priorities on you if you're not purposefully and intentionally working toward a destination that you've designed for your life.
Well said. So, I think that was a piece of gold there in terms of just taking that time and figuring that out. And really, I love what you said about the productivity is about impacting the world around you in a positive way, which is such a nice, empowering slice of productivity that I've never heard before. It's great. So love that. And I'd like to ask now about, you mentioned scheduling something into a calendar and that comes up and the phone rings and it's a client that needs help right away. How do they handle that?
Well, it's a great question because it's something that I deal with all the time. Some of it comes from, and I would guess this is easier as you get more experience in the business that you're in, but recognizing when something really needs immediate attention and when it's just a crisis that because it's on somebody else's mind at the moment. And so, it comes to managing expectations and I'm trying to find the right words here because my inclination is to help anybody who calls me, is to drop what I'm doing and help whoever needs help. But we as business people have to keep the big picture in mind. And just because somebody is, thinking about it at the moment doesn't mean they need their answer right that minute. So that's the first part of the question. What if they really do need that minute? That neither you nor I are brain surgeons. So if somebody calls and they're in a panic and you say, I want to help you and I have something scheduled right now, but I can be available in an hour and a half. Can we talk then and I will jump all over it and take care of this for you? Nobody's going to die if we do that. And they don't need to know that the commitment you have right now is to yourself and to your business. You have an appointment with the CEO of your business, which happens to be you, but you can find that balance between honoring their concern and providing good customer service without letting them decide your priorities for you from moment to moment.
I like that as a strategy. It's a distraction comes in. It's almost like a triage. Obviously there's not many situations that are going to be life-threatening, so all of them can be rescheduled. And so honor, if I'm hearing you correctly, it really is honor them, their time, what they need, but also honor your own time and do as you've done, which is schedule them into the future versus taking up the time you've scheduled right in that present moment.
And it's
That's
hard
great.
for some of us to do. A lot of us are, we're helpers. We get into the professions we're in because we want to help people accomplish their goals. But in order to be able to do that effectively long term, we have to be the managers of our own lives and of our own time, and not let other people, take over.
Absolutely. Now, you said something that piques kind of my curiosity, and I think is maybe a good question on our part to tackle and answer, and then we'll open it up for any questions that we have from those that are on the call. But if we think about, I know for myself, there's times that I won't tackle something because I have doubt. It is, I don't know how to solve what I'm trying to do. And for our members on the call today, they're tackling growing their business. They're going into an uncomfortable place in their business because they've never done some of the things that we're talking about and recommending that they do. And there's new people to talk to. And there's all sorts of things that could be uncomfortable, which for me, I know that causes, if I'm doing something or facing something that's uncomfortable, it's an easy one for me to put off. And I'm fortunate that I've got people surrounding me that outpush me constantly into being uncomfortable so that I do make progress. But what would be your take on that, and how do you deal with that?
Not always perfectly, I'll tell you that. We all, face resistance whenever we're trying to do something new or something important. There are whole books, and my mind, of course, is blanking right now on his name that wrote
The War of Art?
Yes.
Stephen Pressfield.
Stephen Pressfield, thank you. Yes, he's written some fabulous books. But what you're talking about is that resistance that comes up because we are attempting something new, something we haven't done before, something scary, and everything in us wants to run away from that and turn towards something familiar. Our brains like familiar. And so that's why it's so easy when we have scheduled this time, say, to stick with the kind of the story we've been telling so far. We've scheduled 2 hours to work on our long-term plan for our business and get a plan in place to accomplish our goals. And that's hard. That's new, that's different, and it's unknown. And so our brain back behind us is looking for any excuse not to do that. The phone rings, and it's a client, or an email comes in from a client saying, oh my gosh, I've got this thing, I need you to do it. And everything in us goes, I know how to do that, I'll do that. Because this is important, I got to take care of my client, and this other thing can wait. And so we persuade ourselves that we're doing something really important, and therefore it justifies setting aside this other thing that we know we need to do, we know we want to do. It's part of getting us to where we want to be in our business or our life or whatever, but it's real easy to do that. Part of how I deal with it and what I encourage other people to do is just acknowledge it. It's about awareness and being aware that this is what you're doing. And prepare ahead of time, make the decision ahead of time so you don't have to decide when the scenario presents itself. You've already decided, now I am doing this thing that's hard, no matter what. If you make that decision ahead of time, it makes it easier, especially as you practice doing this, to respond to that email with, oh, I see that you need this. I have another commitment right now. I'm available at 3 o'clock this afternoon or at 10 o'clock tomorrow. Which of those times would work for you to talk through your situation? And I'll help you then. And then it just comes, to practice and remembering your why. Why are you doing this? Why do you want to build this business? Why do you want to grow this business? what is your why? If you don't know your why, you're not going to be able to stick with it when things get hard. The other thing is when you have those scary, new, hard things, where the resistance comes, it's really important there to whatever that project is, that hard thing is, to break it down into its tiniest components, be able to tell yourself honestly, I'm not going to do this whole big thing, I'm just going to do this one little piece of it. Because you can get anything done one little piece at a time. Even the hardest thing can get done one little piece at a time.
Absolutely, and I love that one little piece of time and breaking things down. And that's really, I think it'll resonate really well for everyone on the call, because it's a big piece of what they're doing as they're implementing a very, very large change into their business. Yeah, I'm hearing make the decision really that you're going to do something, really be clear about your why. And we talk a lot about that, which is why you're doing this. What's your life going to be like when you've made these changes, and then break it down into the finite steps so that you can just tackle those things. I used to, when I would go out running, long distance running, I was training for an Ironman, and I didn't actually like going for long runs. That was the part that I didn't like, or I liked the least. And I would say, I'm only going out for 10 minutes. That's it. I'm only going for 10. And if I decide that I want to stop, I'm coming back. And every time I go out and I get to the 10 minutes and I'd be like, okay, I can go a little further. And, I would be doing like marathon distances, but it was just the game that I had to play with my brain to chunk it down enough that I'd actually go and do what I was going to do.
Yeah, that's how you defeat that resistance, by making it smaller and less threatening.
Yes, absolutely. And for me, it really worked. And the last thing I heard inside of what you were saying, which sort of occurred to me, was faith. We don't know what our actions are going to bring in the future, but we have to have faith that they will be, if we're doing something of value or doing something in a positive way and something that produces positivity, that it will come back to us in some way. We don't know what that will look like every time, but have faith that the work you're going to do will produce something in the future. We just don't know when, and we don't know exactly what it's going to look like. So faith is a key part to this, which I wanted to mention, because I think a lot of my own challenges when I'm doing something is will this work? Will I get what I want out of it to actually have happen? Be it good enough or work well enough?
Yeah, well, absolutely. And it's important to think through those things and to recognize that sometimes our first attempt at something isn't going to go as well as we would like, whether it's our first attempt at, doing a certain new system of bookkeeping, or our first attempt at scheduling planning time, or anything. It may not go the way we wanted to the first time, but you never fail unless you quit trying.
You absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you so much so far. This has been fantastic. Stacy, you sent a chat in that when one of the email tips that you're using is you took your work email off of your cell phone. So the way that you sort of separates, and that you have to kind of go to your computer to check your work emails versus sitting there at night looking at your work, which I think is a bright idea.
That's a great idea, setting boundaries.
Yeah, I thought so as well. Laura, tell us a little bit about the Productive Women podcast and why everyone on this call and all of our people that get access to this audio, why should they be listening to it? I know you said a little bit about it, but tell us a little more about that.
Sure. It's a weekly podcast. I publish a new episode every Wednesday morning. So we just put a new one out this week, which happened to be a really interesting interview with a woman who's a money coach. And so we talked a little bit about attitudes toward money and stuff. But it's weekly, usually between 30 and 45 minutes long. Most episodes are me talking about a particular productivity-related topic. And about every third or fourth episode, I'll have a guest on who is a woman who is willing to come on and share from her, how she manages her busy life. And I've had everything from, lawyers to doctors to stay-at-home moms to writers to, just kind of the whole spectrum. And I always learn from them the tips and tricks and tools that they use to manage a busy life. But I try to make sure every episode is very applicable to the listeners' lives. I take it very seriously that these people give me their attention for, half an hour or so, and I try to make it worth their while. But we've talked about overcoming discouragement. We've talked about email. We've talked about what are some good tips for managing your to-do list. So it runs the spectrum from, really nitty-gritty nuts and bolts of tech and those sorts of things to the bigger pictures of kind of overcoming our own mindset to get the things done that really matter to us. I have an episode coming up about the productivity challenges of introverts and extroverts and what they can do. So I'm honored that when anybody listens, and I love hearing from the people who listen to the show, and I'm always open to suggestions from people about what topics would be of interest to them and what would help them.
Well, it sounds like an absolute resource that every one of our members is likely going to go. If they're podcast listeners, they're going to go and listen to. I think it sounds like this is what you're talking about. These are the things that they're dealing with. I mean, it is applicable to all sorts, but we do have it up, and we've put that up to on our community as well, Laura. So I'm sure you'll get some listeners. And we'll likely have you back to talk about some of these other challenges as they come up. It's interesting. We polled our membership around podcasts and, do you listen to them? And it was one of the most overwhelming responses coming back saying, absolutely, we listen to podcasts. And so I was really actually taken aback and surprised. It's amazing what's going on in the podcast world, and I've launched a podcast with another organization that I'm a co-founder with, and it's doing really well. And it's a fantastic medium to share value that's out there from people all over the world. So thank you so much for bringing your knowledge, your experiences, and I know you're an extremely busy person. So for us, it really is a privilege. So thank you for being on today. But
it's absolutely been my pleasure. And listen, if anybody on the call, listens to the podcast, shoot me an email and let me know that we met on this call. Also on the website, there's a resources tab that has links to some different tools that I've created or that I recommend, worksheets for goal planning, and a list of my favorite productivity apps and things like that. And so you can find that all at the website as well. Free.
Excellent.
For taking.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that. And I've already have a few people saying they're going to be listening. So this is great. And they're thanking you through text. You made some excellent points and just been a real pleasure. So thank you for that. And I know we'll be in touch, and I know we'll have you back, because I think we're really going to focus on producing these calls as more of a podcast, because people want to listen to these things on the go, and it's a real great format to actually give people value and not have them have to sit at a desk or be anywhere in particular. They can use their time productively when they're driving and these sorts of things. So
that's what I do. I'm a big fan of podcasts. I was a listener long before I started, before I launched The Productive Woman. So
that's great. Excellent. Well, thank you, everyone, for participating today. Thank you on behalf of all of our members, Laura, for joining us. And we'll look forward to hearing more from you on your podcast and on your website. And we'll certainly be sending that information to all of them.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
I really hope you enjoyed that segment, and we look forward to having you back next week on The Successful Bookkeeper, as we put out episodes every week. And as well, we'd love to get your feedback. So if you can go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com/reviews, there's instructions on how you can leave a rating and a review on iTunes, and we'd love to hear what you think and give us your honest feedback. As well, if you have questions or you have challenges that you'd like us to address on this podcast, please go to thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com/ questions where you can record right there on the website a question, and hopefully we can use that in some of our upcoming episodes. Thanks again, and we look forward to catching you next week on The Successful Bookkeeper. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to The Successful Bookkeeper with Michael Palmer. For more information and to download the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit us at thesuccessfulbookkeeper.com. Thank you for listening.